Hi, I'm Dr. Chris Zimmer, and I'd like to do a video entitled Twinkling of an Eye. And it looks like the timeline ends here, that we may indeed have a rapture this December. The twinkling of an eye kind of resembles the sun in the Milky Way galaxy, and spoken of in 1 Corinthians 15. We shall not all sleep, but we shall be changed in the twinkling of an eye. All right, so you probably heard in the news about asteroid Leona 319, which occults Betelgeuse on December 12th. Leona, of course, means lion, and it apparently looks like the blinking of an eye if it occults it only for about 12 seconds, and that starts at around 1:17 UTC. And Betelgeuse has a number of different controversial translations, but one possible translation of Betelgeuse is the hand and arm of the giant. And Orion also, I believe it was in E.W. Bullinger, was likened to the Redeemer. Strong's 319 is to be made known. So, and if you look real close, you can see Betelgeuse, just got occulted. All right, and there are also a couple of other signs of this eye in the sky type thing. This kind of follows the eye in the sky. Alan Parsons Project did a song about that years ago. But about 15 years ago in the lower left, you'll see there was a picture taken in Oceanside, California, where the sun is in the middle of a cloud. It actually looks like an eye. 15 years, and then 5 years ago, was a story, an eerie eye appears in the skies of Holland, April 25th, 2018, and here are these, it looks like 5 correlations. The one was 5 years ago, the other was 15 years ago, which is a multiple of 5, 3 times 5. And then also I threw a couple songs in there that have that 5 symbology. Fifth Dimension, Aquarius, Up, Up, and Away, Dave Brubeck Quartet, Take 5. Montrose did Space Station number 5, and it's a hard rock song, I know, but it sounds kind of like the Rapture at the end. And Blondie, of course, did a song called Rapture. Okay, so here's the big one that I wanted to show you folks. The last time I showed you this timeline, and I didn't pick up on it. There's something very obvious here, and I'm surprised nobody said anything in the comments about it, but it's a pretty big deal. This is the 274 days from Nisan 1 to 12/12, which is the galactic alignment this year, and it follows a timeline of 125 days twice with 3.5 weeks in the middle of it. And this follows from the Aztecs, which we were looking at. The rise and fall of the Aztecs span 200 years, and 200 also appears in John as a clue, 200 cubits from shore with the ship. And anyway, this 200 years is spanned from 1325 to 1525. Within this time range, the number 25 appears twice, but it's along with the number 3.5. And if you'll notice, the 3.5 is also in that range of years. And I didn't catch it originally because, we use, in the Western world, we use dashes in our dates, either dashes or slashes. But if you look worldwide, there are also some dots used, and that's in the old, like the former Soviet Union uses dots as separators in dates. And so it's legal to use this 3.5 as a date. So we get the whole range. We get the entire timeline, 125 days with 3.5 weeks in the middle, and then another 125-day count on the right-hand side of that. And these are all marked out by legitimate dates that we saw from the witnesses, including the 819, which comes from Pi, and also comes from the Mayan calendar, and I think it originates at the synodic period of Mercury, the planet Mercury. Anyway, this is the full timeline, and it looks like we end the timeline at 1222. And then there's one day after that that's mentioned in the Hebrew calendar. I'll go into that later. as kind of a culmination of the whole thing. Okay, so just going back real quick, I'm not going to go over this in detail, but we looked at this before. The Chinese treasure fleet in 1421 sends out their, sixth of 7 world voyages, and they think it may have visited the Americas. And on the right side, we get 2023. That's 602 years later. And the interpretation from Strong's is hard to interpret. This is a very difficult interpretation. Strong's G 1421. And then if we look at the Aztec Empire, the empire itself started in 1428, count 602 years, and we get 2030. So this seems to map out 7 years of tribulation from 2023 to 2030. And then the 2023, of course, would be the rapture. The corresponds to the 153 great fish. Also, if we look at the galactic alignments, the one that started this all in the 13th back tune, counting ahead. Let's go ahead. Sorry. If we go from the galactic alignment this year, and we count 7 years ahead to the galactic alignment in 2030, they're both on December 22nd. And if we look at the dates in the Maya calendar, in the one this year, we get 11 Tun, which is the fulfillment of the 11-year-long galactic alignment sign. And it's also, there's another 11-year sign that finishes this year too. And that already did. That was the 2 eclipses over Albuquerque. And Strong's G218 means to anoint. So the anointed, it seems to point towards the anointed this year. Something happening with the anointed. And then in 2030, 7 years later, is the 18th tune, which shows the completion of over 18 years of signs from 12/21/2012. That's the rollover of the 13th back tune. And Strong's G415 shows up in Yuanal and Ka'in, and that means unmerciful. So this could speak of Jesus returning as a lion in 2030. Okay, so I wanted to revisit the Revelation 12 sign of 2017 because I think there are some things that no one picked up on, at least I haven't seen it anywhere, because there are a number of Moon-Jupiter conjunctions in Virgo that happened in between the comet conception and the actual sign itself. If you look on the left, Jupiter enters Virgo's womb as the conception comet leaves. That's 1117. That's the conception stage of the zygote. This follows a pregnancy. 2 o'clock Israel Standard Time, 0 hour UTC. Moon-Jupiter conjunction in Virgo is on 11/25, 2016. That's the implantation or the blastocyst. And that happens at 3/32/34. There's another Moon-Jupiter conjunction in Virgo on 12/22, which incidentally is the same date, December 22nd, as this year, the prospective rapture. And that's the heartbeat, or the start of the heartbeat in the embryo at 1948, which also corresponds to the year that Jerusalem was taken by the Israelites. And Moon-Jupiter conjunction in Virgo on 1/19/2017 is the start of the development stage, or the fetus, at 10/13/12. And then by 9/9/2017, Jupiter has exited Virgo's womb, and this is the birth. And the hour is 13 hour, and 13, of course, is the numerical value of JC, the initials of Jesus Christ. And this has already been talked about. If you look at the date range from the conception stage, 1117, to 9/9, it's exactly 9 months, 23 days, which points forward to the sign on 9/23. And then going forward, you can see there's a Moon-Jupiter conjunction on 9/22/2017, and this is the day before the Revelation 12 sign, and this happens at 1:53. So we have a 1:53 message here, one day before the sign happens. And then, of course, the Revelation 12 sign, 9/23/2017, post-birth. Revelation 12 sign at 1948, that time again indicating Israel. And there are some day counts in between, the 27 days. If we look in Strong, says beloved, and 8 days, that could correspond to the 8 billion people on Earth during the time of the rapture, since this is pointing forward to the rapture. And also 35 days is G35 without genealogy. Many peoples, I guess, without genealogy. And then the 63 days I haven't correlated yet. However, there is a day count that stands out that I don't think anyone has caught yet. And that's 275 days, which is 9 months and 1 day from 12/22/2016. There's that date, the prospective rapture this year, to the Revelation 12 sign. Now, we also have an interesting thing that comes into play, is a 1-day differential between the 153 big fish, or the sign on 9/22/2017, and the sign itself, which is post-birth. So this is as if to say the rapture happens, and then 1 day later, the attention is turned back to Israel at 1948. All right, so let's take a look at some of what we just talked about. This is Comet C 2017, the Conception Comet, and Jupiter in Virgo. So one is leaving, the Conception Comet is leaving the body, and Jupiter is just entering. And again, this is at November 17, 2016, 0 hour UTC. And coincidentally, at exactly the same time, if we look over at Orion, you'll see the moon is being thrown into play at the time of conception. So this seems to be stating that the moon's going to be very important, that it's part of the signs. So look at something going on with the moon. And there is a moon-Jupiter conjunction on 11/25, and that's at 3:32:34. And the time might allude to, I'm just stretching it a little, I'm not quite sure, but the time might allude to the Revelation 12:5 or Rapture. Then there's a moon-Jupiter, moon-Jupiter conjunction in Virgo, and this is on 12/22/2016. 12/22, of course, is the date of the prospective rapture this year, and then 1948 is the time. We just saw that in the other slide. And let's take a look at a close-up. This is 12/22, and not only is this, it's not a conjunction, it's an appulse, which means they're as close as they can get at this point in time. So the Moon-Jupiter appulse, again, 12/22 Rapture, Revelation 12:5, alluding to the child being caught up. And this is from Albuquerque, New Mexico. That's where we get the 12:5 time. And if we look at the Moon-Jupiter appulse in Virgo on 9/22, that happens at 1:53 or 13:53 or 1:53 p.m. and alluding to the 153 big fish. And then finally, the Revelation 12 sign. And if you notice, I put a green line through the feet, both stars for the feet of Virgo, and it shows that at 1948, the moon is just crossing the line. The moon is just under her feet at 1948, indicating this is assigned to Israel. And okay, so let's sum it all up. There's 9/22, the 153 message, to 9/23, the Revelation 12 sign, a message about Israel, and there's a 1-day differential between the 153 or Rapture and then the turning to Israel. And this theme plays out through all of these day counts from 12/22/2016, which was the heartbeat, to the galactic alignment this year is 7 years or 84 months, and there's that number again from the widow at the temple that Repo Man mentioned to us. And then if we look from the heartbeat, embryo stage, to 12/23, which is the galactic alignment plus 1 day, of course, 7 years, 1 day, or 84 months and 1 day. And then if we look at the embryo heartbeat to 9/22/2017, to that 153 message, we get 274 days, which is 9 months. And then the day afterwards, 1948 sign in Israel, Revelation 12, we get 275 days. So we're looking at the same amount of days as we were for the information or the timeline that we got from the Maya calendar and from the Aztecs. So if we go from Nisan 1 this year to 1222, the galactic alignment, again, is 274 days. And then if we go to the day afterwards, 275 days. So we have this 1 day differential that seems to be playing out in all these timelines. So we also looked in a previous video at the Hebrew alphabet, and we saw that 1011 shows up 3 times. And if we look at it from Nisan 1 this year and do a day count, 1011 would be, that's on the Hebrew calendar, would be 275 days. And that would be the day after the galactic alignment. And it's said 3 times, so that seems to imply that there are 3 things that happen on that day, or that have happened, and that would be rapture fulfilled is one, the age of grace has ended, and the kingdom age has begun, so there's a change of the age, and then the tribulation has begun by that time. So it seems as though this is saying 3 things have been accomplished by the day after the galactic alignment this year. So let's look at a few more. Moon Venus in Virgo. This is in a pulse that happened on 11/9 at 1:33:25, and the 11 seems to imply 11-year signs, 2023. 2 of them terminate this year, and then the 9th, divine completion, of course, and then 33 is in the middle of 125. The 125 may represent the Revelation 12:5 catching up of the child, and then the 125-day count with 33 in the middle representing Jesus, because that's the age at which he was crucified, died, and raised from the dead and ascended into heaven. So that all comes from Albuquerque when we look at this Moon-Venus appulse, the closest they get. And then also this year, let's see, we can see a conjunction on the same day. And that happens in Albuquerque, 153. Now we have another allusion to the 153 big fish. And then if we look at the Moon-Venus appulse in Virgo on 12/9 at 5:46 and 3 seconds from Albuquerque, if we put all that together, Strong's G5463 is rejoice, to be glad, hail, greeting, Godspeed, but mainly it means to rejoice, to be glad, to rejoice exceedingly. And this seems to be talking about a future event this year. And yes, I hope it's for real. Okay, so last time we looked at the Aleph Tav in the sky, and this is on the day of the galactic alignment, 12/22, 1353, which is 1:53 p.m. And let's see, that corresponds to Aleph Tav in Hebrew. It also may be the time, because 853, G853, means to vanish away, snatch out of sight, and to make unseen. And we also saw that 853 in Scripture as well, correlating to a time. So that means that this may be giving us the time of the rapture on that day. And of course, there is the Aleph Tav. Okay, so the rapture sign, it's more than just that day. This is a culmination of a number of signs, starting at 12/21/2012 on the left-hand side at 1866, which corresponds to 666. And then 11 years later, we have the galactic alignment this year on 12/22, but we also have a sign that leads up to that 5 years before on 12/22/2018, which seems to say fulfillment in Strong's 777. And then on 12/27, after the galactic alignment this year, there's a sun in Sagittarius, which also seems to say the same thing if you use the ecliptic J2000. I found another interesting thing, that if you use the ecliptic of date, something interesting pops up on 12/22/2018, that happens at 7:26, which of course corresponds to Harpazo. So this seems to be saying with two different ecliptics. One says fulfillment, and the other one says harpazo. And then if we look at 1227, you can see doing the same thing, that we have a difference of, 2 minutes, 7:57 or 7:05:7 from the ecliptic of date, and then that corresponds to G 7:57, which means rule over and reign over, usage to be chief, to lead, to rule. So that could be the fulfillment after the main sign. Now, I did one thing with the actual alignment. Since the seconds are really hard to call, I did more refined measurements, and I come up something with closer to 153.53. So I did change that from 153.23 to 153.53. And if I do that, then this reads like, starting at the solstice, 5:27, and to the rapture date, 8:53, rapture time, 8:53:23, is 3 hours, 26 minutes, 23 seconds. So that gives us Strong's G 326 to be alive again, to be restored to a correct life. And then if we count between the rapture and the actual sign itself, the galactic alignment, at 153.53, we get 5 hours, 30 seconds, and G 530 is once for all. So, and then we have that 5 hours, of course, and 5 years and 5 days, which 3 times says end of grace. Okay, and I wanted to go back also to this. This is a representation of the signs after the 12/21/2012 sign, the galactic alignment. And then we have a blood moon tetrad, and we have the Revelation 12 sign. We have a Sun-Jupiter conjunction in Pisces, and then we have the Feast of Trumpets. We have Mars, which is in Virgo, and surprisingly, this actually came true. We had Mars in Virgo, which was telling us war. That war did indeed happen, and the 160, 161, 162 day counts implied captivity, and that happened too. That was the start of the war with the hostages taken by Hamas. And okay, so here it is with from Strong's Greek, 160 is sudden, 161 is captivity, 162 to make captive. But the thing I wanted to point out here is the April 8th, there was a conjunction that took place, Passover, third day. This is also the eve of Resurrection Day. So I found some more conjunctions around that, so it kind of solidifies a little bit more information about that. And if we go back to that, we look at the 8th. At 1344, we have what looks like a conjunction through right ascension, and there's only a separation of 11 minutes, 18.35 seconds. And this is when, and you can see in the inset, Jupiter has crossed the line into Pisces. The Sun-Jupiter pair straddle that line, and the time is 1344, which equates to 1:04:04 p.m. Israel Daylight Time. So if we go forward, we see there's another conjunction. In fact, this is a conjunction and a pulse in Pisces at 1:44 IDT. So something's going on here with 1:44, it seems. And you can see they're very close in the inset. The two Sun-Jupiter signs of 4/8 and 4/12 occur 3.5 days apart exactly. One's at 13:44 and the other's at 1:44. Or if you read it correctly, 1:04:04. Zoom in, and we see on 4/12 that 1:44 again, and Strong's 4/12 for the date means unspeakable, and Strong's G 144 is judgment. So this seems to be pointing forward to unspeakable judgment. And let's see here. We have Mercury and Venus are present, so this seems to be a message from Jesus, which is represented by Venus. But here's another conjunction on 4/15 that happens after the big conjunction of Pulse. And this is through right ascension as well. And this is a little bit narrower right ascension. Separation is 8 minutes, 8.8 seconds. And of course, 888 is the numerical value of Jesus Christ in the Greek. So this seems to be an important part of the message here. And you can see both Sun and Jupiter are in Pisces. Now, I thought last time, and I shouldn't have said it, I said, I hope I don't see 144 anymore. And of course, what happens? I see 144 again. Anyway, we looked at the estimated number of raptured people. We're 8.1 billion people on Earth right now. And if you do a little bit of number crunching using data from Pew Research, you come up with 1.44 billion sealed Christians and 6.66 billion left behind. But Christina, that was Patrick Wright's late wife, had a dream in which everyone could find 725, but nobody could find 811, and they were frantic trying to find 811. Well, if I do a projection for 1221 this year, I get 1.44811. There's that number. And I believe it means that the world never sees 8.11 billion people because the rapture happens. That prevents it. But there's a little bit more information that came from the appulses that you just saw, appulse and conjunctions. So from 4:8 at 1344 to 4:12 at 1:44 is exactly 3.5 days, and from 4:12 at 1:44 to 1 day after the galactic alignment at 1:44, which everything should be accomplished by then, is 255 days or 8 months, 11 days. And this seems to suggest that 811 comes into play the day after the galactic alignment. And again, we're looking at that 144 or 1.44811 billion people. Oops, that shouldn't be raptured. Oh yeah, that should be. I'm sorry. Looking at it wrong here. Okay, so there's the 144 alongside of the 811. Okay, so departing from that, if we look at tribulation from those timelines, it seems to be giving us more information, and it's doing it in halves. If we look at the Revelation 12 sign to the April 8th conjunction, we get 2023 days. If we go from the Revelation 12 sign to the April 12th apulse and conjunction, we get 2027 days. If we go from the Revelation 12 sign to the April 15th conjunction, we get 2030 days. So now we seem to have the tribulation mapped out in halves. And if we go from the galactic alignment this year to 6/4, which is Sivan 15, and that's the date at which Judah was born and died, and I'll just go over that in the next slide, but that Sivan 15 seems to be an important number. If we go to 6/4, that's 1260 days. That fits into the prophetic 1260 days from the date in 2023 to 2027. Where are we? 6/4, going to from Sivan 15 again. If we add another 1260 days, we come to 1115 in 2030, and that looks prophetically like it's 7 prophetic years, and that's when the tribulation should end. If we go from that date, November 15th, to 12/22, 2030, the galactic alignment, then there are 37 days in between. And that's 888 hours. Again, the symbol of Jesus Christ, the Greek numerical value, the Greek of his name, Jesus Christ. And then from 1222 to 2023 to 2030 are 7 solar years or 84 months. So it looks like we have, between the galactic alignments this year and 2030, we have 7 prophetic years, which seems to end the tribulation, and then another 7 solar years or 84 months that ends on the galactic alignment, perhaps saying that everything has been fulfilled by that time. And then I'm just kind of speculating here, but 6/4/2027, Sivan 15, plus 1335 days takes us to January 29th, 2031. And this may possibly be the start of the millennial reign. I don't know. I'm just speculating on that. And so bringing up Sivan 15, this year happens on June 4th, and that was the significance of that day count. And that's the day Judah was born and died. And 6423 plus 202 days, which of course we used from the day counts we derived from the witnesses, gives us 1223. That's the day after the prospective rapture, which would be 1011 on the Hebrew calendar. And that's that date that shows up 3 times in the Hebrew calendar. Judah is the 4th son of Jacob and Leah, was born on Quran on the 15th of Sivan, and then he passed away on the same date 119 years later in Egypt. And Strong's 119 means to fight or to struggle. And naturally, Judah as a nation has, fought and struggled. Judah also, on his deathbed, Jacob conferred the leadership of Israel upon Judah, proclaiming, "The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the legislator from between his feet, until Shiloh," which is whom Judah or the Jews believe is the Mashiach, comes. And then, of course, Shiloh, the tabernacle was kept at the ancient sanctuary and city of Shiloh. And then Judah had 5 sons, and that might indicate the years of grace, and then the years of grace ending this year. Okay, so here's the full timeline in all of its gory detail. I don't want to go over this too heavily, but just to say that those numbers that we saw, the 274-day count that we got from the signs in the heavens, also corresponds to this timeline. It goes from Nisan 1 to 1222. That's 274 days. And then, of course, the 275th day would be the day after the rapture, or that 1011. And, okay, so on the left side, we have something going on in Pisces. We just looked at that. We have, on April 8th, we had a conjunction, Sun-Jupiter, and then 412, we have a conjunction and appulse, and then 415, we have another conjunction between Sun-Jupiter. And this maps out 3.5 days, 2 times 3.5 days, or 7 years in total. And it seems to be showing us the days of the tribulation, or I should say the years of the tribulation. And that happens again on the right-hand side. If we look at 1011, which was 726 on the Hebrew calendar, and we went through the sign of Jonah, and that ended on 1017, we have another double 3.5 day count. So we have the tribulation being mapped out here as well. Only in this case, from 1011 to 1017 is 7 days if you include the end dates. Nishimura Jangalovich gave us that 1734. And then that was on that conjunction, or that appulse was on 9/22/202 or 2023. So that gave us both numbers from the clues in Numbers 10:11. There's that number again. Numbers 10:10, of course, is blow with the trumpets, and that would be the prospective rapture. That would be 1222. And then the Numbers 10:11, when the cloud is taken up, that's when it's all over with. And 202 and 22 are overlapped in that scripture. Okay, so we get, and then again at the bottom, Hebrew calendar, 3 times 1011, 3 fulfilled. And 202, that also seems to correspond to 3 things being fulfilled in the day counts. 55, which was to Resurrection Day Eve, and then 125, our prospective rapture, and then 22 days, of course, from Jangalovich, and also the signs in Virgo on 9/19. 22 represents the last chapter of Revelation, which also has a description of heaven. So all fulfilled at that point. And then to 11/11, that date that was 726 on the Hebrew calendar, if you move it 30 days ahead, is 41 days to 12:22, and that's Revelation 4:1. Of course, is an open door, and the voice says, "Come up here." Also, another interesting thing I noticed, I think Patrick Wright spoke about Lazarus Day, and I went into a little bit more detail here, and I found something rather interesting. There are actually two different celebrations of Lazarus Day. Lazarus Saturday is the celebration of the Eastern churches on April 8th, and that, of course, was when we had that big conjunction that we just talked about this year. And then we have the Feast of St. Lazarus of Bethany, and that's the feast that's celebrated by the Western churches on December 17th this year. So that feast of St. Lazarus of Bethany to the Galactic Alignment in the Western U.S. now, not in Israel, but in the Western U.S., from December 17th to December 21st is 4 days. So I thought that was interesting that the Lazarus Day is celebrated in the West, and it's 4 days to the prospective rapture in the Western U.S. And 11/9/23 corresponded to that conjunction Appulse in Virgo at 153. So we have the 153 big fish message to 12/22. The Galactic Alignment is 44 days. Well, if you look at John 11:44, in regards to Lazarus, it says, "And he that was dead came forth." So this seems to correspond to the resurrection and then the rapture. Also, if we look at several verses in John which refer to Lazarus, in 11:23, there's at 11:11 this year, 2023, "Thy brother shall rise again." So this seems to be speaking towards the resurrection. And 11:39, "He hath been dead 4 days." So there's the reference to the 4 days. And then 11:43, which would be the December, correspond to a day count to December 21st, the first day of the rapture, or at least the day of the rapture in the West. And that's the cry with the loud voice, "Lazarus, come forth." And then 11:44, of course, is then when he rises. 11:53 might correspond to the 153 big fish. I don't know. John 11:54 is where Jesus, they had sworn to put him to death, so he left that town and he went to a city called Ephraim. And Ephraim is, of course, what modern day U.S. is likened to. So it sounds like this is a reference to us in the U.S. Okay, let's change subjects completely. I want to go to the asteroid Groom and the end of the age, because it takes a very interesting trip. This is asteroid number 5129, and if we look at May 31st, 2009 at Pentecost, Venus Groom conjunction in Pisces, and then I'm going to show you these in a moment. So 5/31/2009 to 12/22/2023, this galactic alignment is 5318 days, or 14 years, 6 months, 22 days. 5318 means manifest, apparent, manifest, evident, or to be made known. So it looks like something is going to happen here on the galactic alignment. The Groom appears 5 times on Pentecost in Pisces Aquarius over the 14-year time span. And then if we count from 5/31/2009 to 5/28 this year, Pentecost, it's 5110 days, or 13 years, 11 months. So we're almost at the 14-year point there. And then in Genesis, Jacob's uncle Laban gives his daughter Leah in marriage to Jacob for 7 years' work. Okay, so we know about the 2 sets of 7 years that Jacob works for his 2 wives. Jacob wanted Rachel, so he works another 7 years to wed her, and this is a total of 14 years for both wives. Well, Jacob represents Jesus, Leah is a type of the church, and Rachel symbolizes the Jews. So we can see that in our current day timeline, 12/21/2016, that galactic alignment to the one this year is 7 years, 1 day, or 84 months and 1 day. So that has or will be completed on 12/22, and then we start another 7 years, which lasts until 2030, representing the strive for Rachel, or the Jews. Okay, so let's actually look at this in the sky through stellarium. And a conjunction is when two celestial objects appear to be close to each other in the sky and have either the same right ascension or the same ecliptic longitude, usually as observed from Earth. Okay, so on this day we have a conjunction, Venus and Groom in Pisces on Pentecost. And let's see, that's at 4:53:23, and then that 4:53 time was kind of interesting. This is seen from Jerusalem. And if we look at that up close, we can see they're in conjunction, and G453 is foolish, fool, unwise, or not understanding. And then we can look at that same conjunction from Phoenix in Pisces on Pentecost, and we get a different message. We get on 5:31, we get 153, which of course refers to the 153 big fish. So it's very interesting that Israel's getting one message and we're getting another. And then if we look at, this is on June 1st. I don't know if this corresponds to any of the day counts. I didn't find anything. But Venus Groom are at a pulse in Pisces at 1734. So this corresponds to Luke 17:34, and it speaks of the rapture, telling us that in that night there will be two men in one bed, and one will be taken and the other will be left. Okay, so this is rapture speak. And then of course we saw that 1734 before with the close conjunction between Comet Nishimura and John Golovich on 9/22/2023. So that gave us the clue, 11/11, 11 plus 11 is 22, so on and so forth. And then, of course, there's that Luke 17:34. Okay, so Groom also shows up in Aquarius on Pentecost, 5/27 in 2012 at 666. Of course, it's there for longer than that, but I just picked that particular time because the alignment, the galactic alignment that year, 2012, happens at 1866, the same exact time. So I just wanted to show you that this Groom in Aquarius also can occur at that same time. And then the Groom is in Aquarius, of course, longer than this time period, but it is there at that time, 153, so referring to the 153 big fish. And of course, 5/28/2023 Pentecost is the same year as the galactic alignment that occurs at 153. I also want to bring into play Kislev 14 and the Saturn Groom Appulse in Aquarius, because I think this is important too. On the 14th of Kislev, that was the date of Reuben's birth and death, 125 years apart. He was 125 years when he died. He was the first son of Jacob and Leah, and the 125 may be made important here for two different reasons. Of course, the Revelation 12:5 child being caught up, but it's also a reference, I think, to a 125-day count. That's 125 days it shows up twice from Nisan 1 this year. Also, there's something interesting that happened on 14th of Kislev. Rabbi Schneerson married Kaya, I guess Schneerson, the daughter of the 6th Rebbe. So here is this Jewish wedding that's taking place on that date. I thought that was kind of interesting. If we look at Ezekiel 24, this seems to map out the 10th month and the 10th day. So we're looking at 10:10, which is the prospective rapture, 12/22 this year. And it says the king of Babylon started his siege against Jerusalem. So this may correspond, or it may be telling us that the attention turns to Jerusalem and the tribulation starts right after, or right on 10:10, or perhaps immediately afterwards. And then it goes into the parable of the cooking pot. I'm not going to go into that, but Remphan, which is a star, it's a planet. It's taken to mean Saturn, which was the focus of idolatrous worship for ancient Jews and went by many names, even Moloch. And the groom, Jesus, seems to interact with Saturn on the eve of Kislev 14, as if to block it while the future 125th day is about to play out. Excuse me. Okay, so let's actually take a look at that. And you can see Saturn and Groom are extremely close on 11/26 this year at 153. And that is the apples, actually, in Aquarius. And this is 11/26 is Kislev 13, but it's Kislev 14 after sunset. So this also corresponds to the date of Reuben's birth and death 125 years later. And apples, of course, means the least apparent distance between two celestial objects is seen from a third body during a given period. So they're very, very close together, as if Jesus, represented by Groom, is either fighting with or blocking Saturn in some way, which represents Moloch and, evil, has evil connotations. Oh, and that was from Kus Bay. I forgot to mention that's not from Israel. That's from Kus Bay. And then again from Kus Bay, Saturn, Groom, asteroid at Apples in Aquarius at the same time, 153. This is simply a close-up to show you what that Apples looks like. And they're less than 1 degree. They're 34 minutes or so apart. Okay. And 12/22, this is the day of the prospective rapture and the day of the galactic alignment. So what do we have here at 153, which is during that alignment? The Groom asteroid is in Aquarius, which seems to be telling us the age is going to change. Simultaneously, that's going on at the same time Groom is in Aquarius. At this time, 153, we have Venus in Libra. We have child in Ophiuchus and serpents. We have the galactic alignment taking place. And then we have the moon Jupiter at Apples. This is all going on simultaneously the same day, which is very busy, telling us that something big is either about to happen or has happened that day. All right, so let's put this all together. If we look at all the days of Pentecost from the year 2009 to 2031, we get a number of places where Pisces shows up. In 2009, it shows up with the Groom in Pisces. And the Groom is in Pisces in 2016, 2020, 2027, 2031. But the very interesting thing here is that the Groom is in Aquarius in only 2 very interesting times, 2012 and Pentecost in 2023, this year, which seems to be mapping out that 11-year-long galactic alignment sign from 2012 to 2023. So this seems to be telling us that at the end of this 11-year-long sign in 2023, that the age of Pisces is going to end and the age of Aquarius will begin. This is also the end of the church age and the beginning of the kingdom age. Okay, so let's go beyond 2023 and see what's going on, because there are a few interesting things I found there. I don't know what this date 1/4/2024 corresponds to. I don't see any feast days near it or anything interesting to really call it out, but the message that comes through the time is very interesting. The sun is centered on the line between the 2 stars in Sagittarius of Xi 2 Sagittarii and Nunci, and this happens at the time 954:33, and Strong's 954 is Beelzebub, and a name of Satan, the prince of evil spirits. So this is talking about Satan on January 4th next year. And if we go to... Well, actually, this is a close-up. This just shows you how well it's centered on the line. And then if we go to the same day, different time, we have Mars centered on the galactic equator at 1743.59. And again, this is approximate. It's difficult to get it down to the exact seconds. But Strong's G 1743 means to be made strong, to strengthen, increase in strength. To be strong, to receive strength, be strengthened, increase in strength in a bad sense. So we've got on the same day, we've got a message that comes from Sagittarius of Beelzebub, and now we get a message from Mars on the galactic equator that's telling us to increase in strength and to be made strong in a bad sense. This sounds like Satan is coming to power on this date. And then there's a close-up of Mars, and you can see how closely that's centered on the galactic equator. Then in 2030, we have an appulse between Venus and Jupiter on 11/20/2030, and then we get the Strong's 1734, and the time is 5:34 and 6 seconds, and this is on 11/20, and that 1734, Luke 1734, of course, speaks of the rapture, and then the date, Strong's G 11/20, means to kneel down to, bow the knee, kneel, to fall on the knees, the act of imploring aid and of expressing reverence and honor. So not quite sure what that means, but it may be something about to happen, something like the like the second coming is about to happen, or something like that. I'm just speculating, but that's in 2030. And then, let's see, 11:30, we have an appulse, and you can see we've got a close-up between the Sun and Jupiter at 16:48 or 4:48 p.m. And 11:30 in Strong's means to be made naked or to be naked. And then 16:48, the time, is Eleazar, and that means the help of God. So the kneeling down and the being naked and the help of God, this is at the end of the tribulation, supposedly, right around the end in 2030. So this may be that the help of God is on the way. And then on 12/20 at 7:30, we have Venus, which represents Jesus, and this is Kislev 24, is on the line, that same line, between Xi2 Sagittarii and Nunci in Sagittarius. And this is an interesting date because this is the date that I think it's Cool Cat's, I can't remember the number. Anyway, he was talking about this, and I think he's getting the date from Haggai 2, and it's mentioned several times, and it talks about the God saying that he will shake the earth or something like that. Shortly will shake the earth. There'll be a shaking on the way, something like that. And this is that date, and it seems as though there's actually a sign that places it not this year for the rapture, but seems to place it in 2030, along somewhere with the second coming of Christ. And the time, 7:30, means male or man-child. So this message seems to be, this seems to be emphasizing a message about the man-child, and since it's Venus, that represents Jesus, and this is on that Kislev 24 when a shaking is happening, or shortly thereafter. And you can also see at the very top there, the Sun is just about at the crossing point between the ecliptic and the galactic equator. So this is almost at the point of the galactic alignment that year in 2030. So here's a message about Jesus, and in Scripture something about a shaking, and then the Sun is about to align with the galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy. And then here's a close-up just to show you how well Venus is centered on the line between those two stars in Sagittarius. And then here is This is an Aleph Tav, if you will. This is the galactic alignment in 2030, which is, somewhat reminiscent of the one that's going to happen this year. But this one happens at exactly 9 o'clock sharp. So very interesting. And if we count from December 22nd this year at 1:53:53 p.m. to December 22nd, the galactic alignment that year, 2030, at 9 sharp, the result is 2556 days, 19 hours, 6 minutes, and 7 seconds, 1967. So this seems to be a indication or calling us to recall the taking back of Jerusalem. So Jerusalem and Israel are born again, so to speak, in 1967. So this is interesting. This seems to, and 9, the number 9 symbolizes divine completeness or finality. So this is as if to say it's all been accomplished by this point in time, at least the tribulation and, all of that. And here's a close-up just to show you how well that aligns with the ecliptic and the galactic equator at 9 sharp. Okay, so something else happens, something reminiscent of what's going to happen this year on the 27th, just like this year. This is the Sun in Sagittarius, Milky Way, on 12/27/2030 at 2 o'clock, 7 minutes and 33 seconds a.m. Israel time. And the sun, again, the sun is evenly distributed over the line, and Strong's 2733 means habitation. So by this time, I guess the focus is back to habitation, and probably the beginning of the millennial reign. Here's a close-up just to show you how well that's centered on the line. And since we were talking about Aztecs, and that gave us our timeline, I thought it was interesting that I just saw this in the news. The galaxy Aztec 71, this is from NASA's James Webb Telescope, and it's captured a real monster in deep space, a dusty galaxy birthing hundreds of stars yearly. And this is taken in the infrared wavelength, 4.44 microns. And I guess the image was so sparse that they had to have an artist come in and do an impression of this. But this is an artist's impression of Aztec, Galaxy Aztec 71. And that left behind look, it has a hideous look. And let's see see if we can match it up. Oop, how did that get? Oh, no, that's Commander Kelly. He doesn't belong there. There we go. It looks pretty close. Similar. We're getting better. That's the spirit. That's Creature Features has it. That looks exactly like it. All right, so the Harpazo days should be over 1221 and 1222 with the galactic alignment. And I'm crossing my fingers. I hope this is it. I mean, there's so much that's pointing to this. It's just phenomenal. And it's right at the end of the timeline. So I hope this is it. It's the eye in the sky rapture. And God bless you all. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you there. I hope to see you in the sky. God bless.